Hey everybody, my name's Kate and I'm here at the Eastside Freedom Library in St. Paul, Minnesota. And the three books that I have for you today are all about music. And they're about music in kinds of music that I don't usually read about in kids' books, so I'm really excited to share them with you. And the first one's called The Roots of Rap. And all of these stories have amazing pictures in them too. And I'm not experienced at rapping, so I'm going to do my best to read this to you, but somebody else could probably read it better. Folktales, street rhymes, spirituals rooted in spoken word. Props to poets Hugh and Dunbar, published. Ain't you heard? Soul man James Brown shouting, "I'm black and I'm proud," giving birth to funk, bassline pulsing loud. The origins go way back beyond old school, but it was in the 70s that rappers started to rule. Crews with cans of paint spray, tags on subway trains, writers from every borough take risks to make a name. Graffiti is thrown on buildings, bridges, and billboard signs, all along the Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn lines. A boombox-toting homie blasts a hot track on a corner. Passerby, 4 deep surround a street performer. With sheets of cardboard for a stage, b-boys bust out moves. Donkey, spider, robot, windmill, rock, lock, spin to break dance grooves. Jamaican DJs shouting toasts invent what's now called dub. Remix with twin turntables at a soul and reggae club. DJ Kool Herc in the Bronx, block party under his command, rock and rocks nonstop, mic clutched in his hand. Dropping, scratching, beat juggling, matching, wax on wheels of steel, wordplay, rhyming, triple timing, keeping the lyrics real. Sugar Hill Gang, Run DMC, LL Cool J, Curtis Blow, Biggie and the Fat Boys jamming on the radio. Nas, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent, Tupac 2, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the message ringing true. Female MCs break it down, Salt and Peppa and TLC, Queen Latifah sports a crown, reigning like royalty. All around her kingdom, shorties raised on rap, boogie to fat beats and backward baseball caps. A generation voicing stories, hopes and fears, founds a hip-hop nation, say holler if you hear. From Atlanta to Zanzibar, youth spit freestyle freedom sounds. Hip-hop is a language that's spoken the whole world round. So I was going to read you a little something from the beginning of this book by a rapper and DJ and a record producer. A record producer is somebody who helps the musicians put the sounds all together in the studio. And his name's Swiss Beats. He says, "I first encountered hip-hop when I was growing up in the Bronx." That's a neighborhood in New York City. "This particular style of music gave me energy and freedom, and it helped me focus on what I wanted to do with my life. I started DJing as a teenager, thanks to support from my family and friends, and my career in music took off soon thereafter. Hip-hop and rap aren't often featured in children's books, so this book is truly special. It provides a wonderful introduction to both the sounds and the artists who paved the way in this genre, that means style, many of whom were and continue to be role models to me. My hope is that you will be encouraged to learn more about rap and its roots, along with the artists who have shaped and continue to make this genre," again, genre means style. He's talking about the style of music, "what it is today." So there's a picture of Swiss Beats. Okay, I have another book that's about rap music, or it uses the term hip-hop. When the Beat Was Born, DJ Kool Herc and the Creation of Hip-Hop. Clive loved music. It didn't matter what kind, whether it was the wah-wah scat of a jiving trumpet, a sorrowful twang of a sad voice, or the belting boom of a gospel singer. Little Clive loved the way sound thumped and bumped all the way down in his stomach. He loved the way the music made his feet go hip-hop, hip-hip-hop, hippity-hop. Little Clive lived in Kingston, Jamaica. His hero was a DJ named King George, who threw the biggest, baddest house parties in the neighborhood of Somerset Lane. On Saturday nights, everybody who was anybody made their way to Somerset Lane for King George's hot dance parties. Little Clive was too young to go to the parties, so he went to the house when King George and his friends were setting up during the day. They'd arrive pushing a big old handcart stacked with crates of records. Clive had never seen so many records. He imagined himself as a DJ, surrounded by all those records, choosing just the right song to get the party jamming. He saw himself toasting like a DJ, talking and singing over the instrumental B-sides of the records. Clive dreamed of everyone's feet going hip-hip-hop, hippity-hop. Little Clive really wanted to be a DJ. When Clive was 13, he joined his mama in New York City. Clive wasn't sure he liked his new neighborhood in the Bronx. Well, now we've heard about the neighborhood, the Bronx, in New York City twice, so I think we can figure that the Bronx must have been a place where rap and hip-hop was born, because both of these books talk about the Bronx. It was cold. He had to wear a silly winter hat with ear flaps, and everybody made fun of him. See, Jamaica doesn't get as cold as New York City, so this is a new experience for him. But Clive did find one thing besides music that made him feel like he belonged: sports. He ran track and lifted weights. He played basketball at the neighborhood playground, and soon Clive was no longer little. He had grown to 6 foot 5 inches tall. He called himself Cool as Clyde, after his favorite basketball player, Walt Clyde Frazier. But the kids on the basketball court took one look at his size and called him Hercules. Clive cut the name down short to Herc and then added cool to make it just right, Kool Herc. The best part of being big was that he could go with his mama to neighborhood house parties where he listened to the hottest tunes and danced like crazy. Clive loved these parties. They were just like the ones he stood outside of in Somerset Lane. One day, Kool Herc's father bought a monster sound system with giant 6-foot speakers. But when he hooked up the system, instead of a really big sound coming from the speakers, a little mumbling sound trickled out. Kool Herc spent days switching wires and plugging other things into each other until one day the sound was big. Not just big like Kool Herc, but big like an entire block in the Bronx. Kool Herc and his little sister Cindy rented the rec room in their housing project on Sedgwick Avenue. They hand-wrote invitations telling everybody where to get their groove on. They posted cards all around the neighborhood. They set up their father's sound system. On the night of the party, everybody who was anybody made their way to Sedgwick Avenue for Kool Herc's hot dance party. And that is when Kool Herc became DJ Kool Herc. DJ Kool Herc noticed that the dancers danced crazy hard during the breaks in the song when the lyrics ended and the music bumped and thumped. Herc knew that's what dancers wanted, so he plugged in 2 turntables instead of 1. He put the same record on both turntables. He set it up so that when one record ended its break, he could flip it over to the other turntable and play it again. Doing this over and over, he made a 10-second break last for 10, 15, even 20 minutes or more. Herc remembered the way the DJs in Jamaica would chant and toast over the music, and he started calling out the names of his friends during the breaks. There goes my mellow Coke LaRoque in the house. There goes my mellow Clark Kent in the house. There goes my mellow Timmy Tim in the house. There goes my mellow Bambada. Everybody loved hearing his or her name called out over the music. He'd compliment people on their dance moves, he'd talk about the music, and he'd send shout-outs. He'd make up little raps like the jump rope rhymes he heard on the playground, and he would call, "Hey, Mike on the lights, make like a strobe," and Mike would flip off the switch on and off. Over the next year, Herc took his parties to the streets and parks of the Bronx. He plugged his sound system into the lampposts. They pulled so much power that the street lights dimmed. Perfect lighting for a street party. Kool Herc's music made everybody happy. Even the street gangs wanted to dance and not fight. Gangs like the Savage Skulls, the Glory Stompers, the Blue Diamonds, the Black Cats, and the Black Spades turned into breakdancing crews who performed some of the slickest moves. Herc called the coolest dancers breakdancers or b-boys. We heard about b-boys in the last story because they loved to dance at the breaks. When Herc would find a really good break, he'd shout, "B-boys, go down!" And their breakdancers would cut and jump their gymnastics. Hey, hey, check this out. The top rock, the down rock, the windmill, one-handed handstand freeze, the turtle, the suicide. Herc gathered a crew of friends to rap behind his DJing. He loved Kool Herc, a Jamaican friend, to rap. He invited Kool Herc, a Jamaican friend, to rap. He called him the Master of Ceremonies, or MC. Coke knew all about toasting like Jamaican DJs. He was the first of Herc's crew of MCs, called the Herculoids. Herc would introduce them with a rap. You rock and you don't stop, and this is the sounds of the DJ Kool Herc in the sound system. You're listening to what we call the Herculoids. No one's going to invite me to rap on anything, so I'm doing my best here. Soon kids from all over New York City came to see DJ Kool Herc, who threw on the biggest and baddest parties on Sedgwick Avenue. Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, Jazzy Jeff, and dozens of others all wanted to be DJs just like Kool Herc. There's no story can't be told, there's no horse that can't be rode, a no bull can't be stopped, and ain't disco we can't rock. Herc, Herc, who's the man with the master plan from the land of Gracie Grace, Herc, Herc. Herc didn't just rock the block, he put the hip, hip, hop, hippity hop into the world's heartbeat. So that's a true story about a man named DJ Kool Herc and how he started the hip hop movement. And then our third story is also a true story about a man who goes by Trombone Shorty. His name's Troy Andrews, and this is about him. He's not in New York City. He is in a city called New Orleans, which is kind of far away from New York City. If you're in Minnesota or St. Paul, near where I am, if you took the Mississippi River all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, you would end up in the town where Trombone Shorty is. It might take you a little while. Where you at? Where you at? We have our own way of living down here in New Orleans and our own way of talking too. And that's what we like to say when we tell a friend hello. So, where you at? Lots of kids have nicknames, but I want to tell you the story of how I got mine. Just like when you listen to your favorite song, let's start at the beginning, because this is a story about music. But before you can understand how much music means to me, you have to know how important it is to my hometown, my greatest inspiration. I grew up in a neighborhood in New Orleans called Treme. Any time of day or night, you could hear music floating in the air. And there was music in my house, too. My big brother, James, played the trumpet so loud you could hear him halfway across town. He was the leader of his own band, and my friends and I would pretend to be in the band, too. Follow me, James would say. There's one time every year that's more exciting than any other. Mardi Gras. Parades fill the street, and beaded necklaces are thrown through the air to the crowd. I love the brass bands with their own trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and biggest brass instrument of them all, the tuba, which rested on the musician's head like an elephant trunk. Where you at? Where you at? The musicians would call. All day long, I could see brass bands parade by my house while my neighbors danced along. I loved these parades during Mardi Gras because they made everybody forget about their troubles for a little while. People didn't have a lot of money in Treme, but we always had a lot of music. I listened to all these sounds and mixed them together, just like how we would make our food. We take one big pot and throw in sausage, crab, shrimp, chicken, vegetables, and rice, whatever's in the kitchen, and stir it all together and let it cook. And when it's done, it's the most delicious taste you've ever tried. We call it gumbo, and that's what I wanted my music to sound like. Different styles combined to create my own musical gumbo. But first I needed an instrument. The great thing about music is you don't even need a real instrument to play, so my friends and I decided to make our own. We might have sounded different from the real brass bands, but we felt like the greatest musicians of Treme. We were making music, and that's all that mattered. One day, I found a broken trombone that looked too beaten up to make music anymore. It didn't sound perfect, but finally, with a real instrument in my hand, I was ready to play. The next time the parade went by my house, I grabbed that trombone and I headed out into the street. My brother James noticed me playing along and smiled proudly. "Trombone Shorty," he called out, because the instrument was twice my size. "Where you at?" From that day on, everybody called me Trombone Shorty. I took that trombone everywhere I went, and I never stopped playing. I was so small that sometimes I fell right over to the ground because it was so heavy. But I always got back up, and I learned to hold it high. I listened to my brother play songs over and over, and I taught myself those songs too. I practiced day and night, and sometimes I fell asleep with my trombone in my hand. One day, my mom surprised me with tickets to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, the biggest and best music festival in town. We went to see Bo Diddley, who my mom said was one of the most important musicians of all time. I watched him on stage, and I raised my trombone to my lips, and I started to play along. He stopped his band in the middle of the song and asked the crowd, "Who's that playing out there?" Everyone started pointing, but Bo Diddley couldn't see me because I was the smallest one in the place. So my mom held me up in the air and said, "That's my son, Trombone Shorty." "Well, Trombone Shorty, come on up here," Bo Diddley said. The crowd passed me overhead until I was standing on stage next to Bo Diddley himself. I walked right up to the microphone and held my trombone high in the air, ready to blow. He's brave, huh? "What do you want to play?" Bo Diddley asked. "Follow me," I said. After I played with Bo Diddley, I knew I was ready to have my own band. I got my friends together, and we called ourselves the 5 o'clock band because that was the time we went out to play each day after finishing our homework. We played all around New Orleans. I practiced, and soon my brother James asked me to join his band. When people wondered who the kid in the band was, he would proudly say, "That's my little brother, Trombone Shorty, where you at?" And now I have my own band called Trombone Shorty and Orleans Avenue, named after a street in Treme. I've played all around the world, but I always come back to New Orleans. When I'm home, I make sure to keep my eyes out on the younger musicians in town and help them out, just like my brother did for me. Today, I play at the same New Orleans Jazz Festival where I once played with Bo Diddley, and when the performance ends, I lead a parade of musicians around, just like I used to do in the streets of Treme with my friends. "Where you at? Where you at?" I still keep my trombone in my hands, and I will never let it go. And in the end of the story, there's a picture of this kid, Troy Andrews, standing next to Bo Diddley on the stage playing his trombone. But you know what I like about all of these stories that we read? Is sometimes I think we need a brand new instrument if we're going to learn how to play something, or we need some brand new thing. But in these stories, he didn't have a brand new trombone. He went out and he found one, and he wanted to play it so badly that he made it work for him. In the previous story, DJ Herc, Kool Herc, he didn't have a brand new sound system. He had an old one that his dad found somewhere, and he worked on it and he made it better. So sometimes I think we need brand new things to try something new, but I think what these stories teach us is that if we really want to try something, we can use what's around us and we can figure out how to do it. So thanks for joining me this week, and we will see you next time.